I'm Richard Friedman, and welcome to my video cartoon for September 5th, 2025. Here we have President Trump watching the governor of Illinois, kind of giving Trump his opinion of how wrong it is for him to be sending military, the National Guard, into Chicago. President Trump was already told that in California that the Posse Comitatus Act prohibits diluting military forces with civilian forces. You can't do that. You could activate the National Guard, but you can't mix them up and get them fighting as one unit. You can't have them enforcing the local laws of a city. You can't do that in law, and it breaks. The National Guard is trained to fight the enemy nations, or if an invasion takes place, or some sort of foreign group tries to take over the country or do damage to our country. There you have the National Guard. You don't take the National Guard against civilian population. They're not trained to do that. The people there know the situation, and they know how they were trained and how to deal with civilian problems. And when you bring in the military, you're bringing in in essence, you're bringing in a foreign force that doesn't know the area, doesn't know the people, and that's what the Posse Comitatus Act was designed. Basically, if you remember watch westerns when you were a kid, they would go, let's go out and form a posse, and get those bad guys. And that's what it comes down to. The Posse Comitatus Act was designed to prevent the federal government from swooping into civilian problems and civilian disturbances, and let the people there handle it responsibly. And so, and that's what it was all about, and it was passed back in 1878, right after the Civil War, and at the end of basically where they were Reconstruction was just about ending, and the people were there down south. The government didn't want the federal government intruding on what the South was going to do after the troops left and after the Civil War and Reconstruction was over. So they said I think it was President Rutherford, who signed the bill, that Posse Comitatus bill, and that bill was really designed to enable civilians to stand up for themselves. And so I want to give you a sample of that. Here is what I picked out here. This is a sample of what I'm talking about from a Western movie, High Noon. And here is a sample of called A Lesson in Civics from the movie High Noon with Gary Cooper. And here it is. Okay, there we go.
15-second recipe.
Here we go. Here we go.
Glad you got here first.
This is what Comitatus Law Posse was all about.
You shouldn't have come back, Will. Stupid. I figured I had to. I figured I had to stay. You figured wrong. I can deputize a posse, 10, 12 guns.
There he goes. He's talking about a posse.
Intuition tells me otherwise. Why? No time for a lesson in civics, my boy. In the 5th century BC, the citizens of Athens, having suffered grievously under a tyrant, managed to depose and banish him. However, when he returned some years later with an army of mercenaries, those same citizens not only opened the gates for him, but stood by while he executed members of the legal government. Similar thing happened about 8 years ago in a town called Indian Falls. I escaped death only through the intercession of a lady of somewhat dubious reputation, and the cost of a very handsome ring which once belonged to my mother. Unfortunately, I have no more ring. You're a judge. Been a judge many times in many towns. I hope to live to be a judge again.
See, so that was it. So he refused to help him. This was an outlaw who was convicted. He's sent to jail, and now he's being released, and he's going to the town to form a posse. And he said he could if the judge would help him, he could swear those people in, and the judge is turning his back on him. You see, so that was what the Comitatus Act was all about. The Posse Comitatus Act was all about. And so I wanted to tell you that, give you an example of a real life situation where it didn't work out too well, but that's what it was about, to get the civilian people to defend for themselves. Okay, and I want to say, if there's anything else here I want to talk to you about before we get into the cartoon. I showed you the scene from High Noon. Okay, now the other thing I want to mention to you about this cartoon is this. On August 25th, 2025, President Trump signed an executive order establishing a specialized National Guard unit to address crime in the cities, and also at the same time ordered the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, to designate a group of National Guard members from every state for nationwide deployment. So President Trump is basically saying, screw the Comitatus Act. We need, if they can't do it themselves, they cannot do it themselves, but we're coming in. We're coming out for them. We're going to get the bad guys, and we're just not going to follow. Never mind, we're not following this law. What matters more is that we're going to get the bad guys. And if you defeat the system, and what have you got left? If you don't follow the laws, what kind of country? If we become the bad guys, if the government becomes the bad guy, who's the good guy? Who's the bad guy? So that's what it comes down to. So it's the responsibility of the people, the civilians, to stand up and do the right thing, and to fight for their rights where they are at. So that's the point of that of what I just showed you with Gary Cooper who starred in High Noon in that movie there. And that was the scene. And so President Trump is clearly aiming to start some sort of a national force to take out different members from each National Guard unit and have them trained to work together to come into different cities throughout the country. That's what's been reported. Okay, and given the Illinois Army National Guard, which serves Chicago, has tanks that includes the M1 Abrams tanks. The M1 Abrams tank is a good tank. It's a very powerful tank, that Abrams tank, as part of its mechanized infantry division. Okay, so that's the story there, and I wanted to show you that, and now I'm going to get to the cartoon here. And here it is, President Trump watching Governor J.B. Pritzker, and here he goes. And here's Pritzker. He's going to say, it's unconstitutional that troops President Trump is suggesting at this point, he's suggesting sending. Civilian law enforcement helps to fight crime. President Trump has cut federal programs. He said he's cut federal programs that's been helpful to fighting crime that work, and defunded the police. He defunded the police. So Pritzker wants more money to hire more police, which President Trump, according to him, has turned him down on. He wants to bring in the troops, saying, look, all the millions of dollars that's costing the federal government to send all these people. You got to feed them. You got to do their laundry. You got to give them all kinds of stuff, and shelter and tents and whatnot. Okay, and cut federal programs that work and defund the police. This is about elections in 2026. So he's saying to President Trump, this is all about elections in 2026 and interrupting our ability to have a fair and free election in 2026. We are just the first city he wants to invade. So Pritzker is coming out here, and he's saying basically that President Trump has plans to invade other cities and he has an ulterior motive of wanting to control elections there as well, declaring all kinds of election emergencies and using the troops there to enforce his system of justice of what he believes is a fair election run, fair election. Okay, now here's President Trump, who I put in here, watching him, and here he is watching J.B. Pritzker. There he is watching him, and here is President Trump, and he's saying, "Weak, pathetic Pritzker." He did call him that. Weak, pathetic Pritzker. If you look at the top 25 cities for crime, just about every one of those cities is run by Democrats. Well, I don't know if President Trump had the time or the will to check the crime rate in all those cities, and if that's people have disputed that. But I'm not going to say that. I'll let you decide on those on President Trump's numbers. But I'm just injecting that. So we are coming for those cities first, okay, which happen to be Democrat cities, okay. New York could be next on our list to make great again, okay. And there goes President Trump. Here he is. Okay, his objective being to make those cities great again, make Chicago great again, make Los Angeles great again, make Washington, D.C. great again, now thinking about ahead to New York, make New York great again. So that's his itinerary, his great, to make things great again, itinerary for those cities and others to come. It appears to be, so the M1 tanks they're greasing up those M1 tanks now. And those Abrams tanks being greased up, ready to move along with the infantry in every certain groups of National Guardsmen are being trained in every state to be able to react immediately to any provocation or any executive order given by President Trump or any order to federalize them. See, in Washington, D.C., it was a little different. The Comitatus Act was not as strong there because there President Trump doesn't have to federalize them because they're already under the president's control. So because of that, the Comitatus Act, it wasn't as strong in Washington, D.C. So President Trump, I guess, took it a little further and wanted to take over the whole police force there. But then he said, now he appointed Pam Bondi, Attorney General Pam Bondi, to appoint a federal official to take over the police department, So probably get this guy a new outfit, a new uniform and stuff, brand new uniform, a special uniform, whatever. And so that didn't work out because the federal judge said it was illegal to take over the Washington, D.C. Police force, even though the Comitatus Act is much more weaker, is more difficult to enforce there. Again, that's because there is the President Trump doesn't have to federalize that National Guard because they're already under his control. So it made things a lot easier until this federal judge said, you can't take over the police department with Pam Bondi's official. Can't do that, So and you can be sure that I guess that official will be somebody from the Justice Department, from Pam Bondi's Justice Department. Okay, so there you have it here. And now, this is President Trump's fantasy here of driving up to Pritzker's Springfield mansion, okay, just ahead of the invasion of Chicago. This Abrams tank here that I drew, he's in an Abrams tank. There he is. And he's driving up. There is the mansion here. Okay, that's the governor's mansion. There it was. There it is. And here's Governor Pritzker out to greet President Trump in his tank. There he is. And here we go. And here is the tank, the Abrams tank that I drew with President Trump on the inside. There. Next to his machine gun. And there's the American flag. And there it is there. And here we go with the cartoon. And here goes President Trump starting the ball rolling here. And he's saying, Pritzker, need a ride to Chicago? Right on the troops are back right behind President Trump, and they're all pushing ahead to Chicago. And Pritzker responds here. Here goes Pritzker. Governor Pritzker, J.B. Pritzker responds saying, Trump, I'll take a ride to the Supreme Court. See you there. So President Trump's going to appeal all these federal decisions and take it to the Supreme Court. That's going to happen. So this is going to go back to the Supreme Court. So you remember the immunity decision from the Supreme Court that gave President Trump immunity and all this that flowed from that. So this could be, I'm not saying, I'm just putting in context of the history of the Supreme Court rulings where they granted President Trump more powers, giving him immunity, a great blanket here where his official duties, anything that relates in the slightest degree to his official duties, he's exempt from any kind of regulation or prosecution from. So a similar situation could happen here in a certain way. But again, the Constitution of the United States, basically, a court ruled that the Posse Comitatus Act is there's nothing in the Constitution that would work against that act to eliminate it. It's there, and the act is stated itself that only Congress can send in troops. The president, the Comitatus Act, basically says only the president can only do it with the approval of Congress or the Constitution. And the Constitution does not give President Trump the right to do it. There's nothing in the Constitution that goes against that Comitatus Act. You see? So the Supreme Court's going to have to stay up. Those 6 justices, conservative justices who gave President Trump immunity, are going to have to stay up late. They're going to have to burn the midnight oil to find something in the Constitution there to try to wiggle a way through to get that negated, that Comitatus Act. I don't know. So anyway, so there it was. That was that. And now President Trump gets the last word. And here President Trump responding to Pritzker saying, see you there at the Supreme Court. So President Trump here he goes. And there his response to Pritzker here, saying, I don't need to be there at the Supreme Court. As the President of the United States, I have 6 patriotic justices who will support my executive orders to protect the American people. They will do a fantastic job. Pritzker, see you in the Windy City. The Windy City is nicknamed for Chicago. Is the Windy City. So there he goes. There goes President Trump. There was the mansion that I drew there, that President Trump went up to. His task, Governor J.B. Pritzker coming out to talk to President Trump in his tank on his way with his troops into Chicago. And there it is, and there it goes. Okay, and there he goes. There goes President Trump on the way to Chicago. There he goes. All right, folks. Thank you for watching my video. God bless you, and I'll see you next time. Hang in there. Take care.